When we think about ancient church traditions, we usually picture feasts that are centuries, maybe even thousands of years old. But today, we're going to talk about one of the newest feasts in the Catholic calendar. And what's wild is that it wasn't born from some peaceful ancient past. Nope, it was forged in a moment of intense, modern, global crisis.
To really get this, we've got to jump in a time machine. So picture it. The year is 1925. The world is trying to catch its breath after a massive war, but the air is just thick with tension and this deep uncertainty. And it's right here, in this specific moment, that we find the key to why this feast even exists.
So what was going on? The world wasn't just changing. It was in a full-blown crisis. It was grappling with the ghosts of the past and just consumed by anxieties about the future.
What's really fascinating is how all of this was connected. World War I had shattered empires and left this deep scar of distrust across the globe. And that just poured fuel on the fire of a really dangerous, aggressive nationalism. On top of that, economies were collapsing, and into that vacuum stepped these powerful new secular ideologies, things like communism and fascism, promising their own kind of salvation and pushing religion completely out of public life.
So you've got these massive political and social forces all screaming for total control, for absolute authority over people's lives. What was the church supposed to do? It couldn't fight them with an army. It couldn't create its own political party. It had to respond with something else. It had to respond with an idea.
And that idea was the Solemnity of Christ the King. Right there in 1925, Pope Pius XI established this feast, and it was a direct and really powerful counterstatement to everything that was happening. It was basically a declaration to the world saying, hey, no matter what government or ideology is demanding your absolute loyalty, there's a higher authority, a universal king whose reign is about justice and peace and love, not about crushing people.
Okay, but hold on a second. This raises a huge question. The church is proposing a king in an age of rising dictators and aggressive nationalism. What kind of king are they even talking about? Because it certainly wasn't the kind the world was used to seeing.
This one line, spoken by Jesus himself, is the absolute key to understanding the whole thing. And he's not saying his kingdom doesn't matter here on earth, not at all. He's making a statement about where his power comes from and what it's like. It just doesn't operate by the world's rules. It's a different system entirely.
And this contrast is right at the heart of it. On one side, you've got the world's model for what a king is. It's all about power, force, domination, wealth. But on the other side, you have Christ's model. His authority comes from serving people. His power is shown in sacrifice. His law is love, and his domain is truth. It's a total, complete inversion of earthly power.
This is basically the job description for this unique kind of king. Real leadership, real authority isn't about telling people what to do. It's about giving yourself for them. This whole idea of servant leadership, that's the absolute core of his kingdom.
So it makes sense, right? If the king is this different, then the symbols of his power, the crown, the throne, all the usual royal stuff, they have to be transformed too. And they are, in the most radical way you can imagine.
Just think about this for a second. The symbols of his power are completely flipped upside down. His throne, the ultimate seat of authority, it's the cross, an instrument of torture and execution. His crown isn't made of gold and jewels. It's a crown of thorns, a symbol of mockery and suffering. And his scepter, the symbol of command, it's a gentle shepherd's staff. Every single symbol of humiliation and pain is transformed into a symbol of incredible love and true authority.
Okay, so this was a feast created in response to the crises of 1925. But why are we still talking about it now? Well, because the fundamental questions it was asking back then about power, authority, and where our ultimate loyalty lies, those questions haven't gone anywhere.
In a world that is still so torn apart by divisions, by wars, by this relentless chase for power, this feast is a really profound call to hope. It's a reminder that no matter how chaotic things get, the final word doesn't belong to any government or any ideology or any economic system. It belongs to a kingdom of peace and justice that is ultimately going to endure.
But here's the thing. Acknowledging Christ as king isn't just some passive belief. It's an active challenge. It forces us to ask ourselves some tough questions, like, are my personal decisions actually in line with the values of the gospel? Am I an agent of peace and forgiveness in my own relationships? And am I actually doing anything to help build a better, more compassionate society?
So that brings us to the most important part of all. How do we actually live this out?
How do we make this kingdom a reality in our own little corners of the world?
Well, here's a pretty practical way to think about it. First, it starts on the inside, by renewing our faith and putting Christ back at the center of our lives. Then second, it has to move outward, through a real, concrete commitment to the vulnerable, the people society so often forgets. And third, it's about consistency, just living with integrity in all the ordinary, everyday moments, at home, at work, and out in our communities.
And this, right here, this is the ultimate measure of citizenship in this kingdom. The king identifies himself not with the powerful, not with the rich, but with the poor, the hungry, the stranger. Serving them is serving him. It brings this whole grand theological concept right down to earth into simple, tangible acts of compassion.
So all of this leaves us with a question to chew on, doesn't it? In a world that is still completely obsessed with the old models of power, with wealth and force and domination, what does it really mean to pledge your allegiance to a king whose throne was a cross, whose crown was made of thorns, and whose greatest act was to serve? That's the challenge and the invitation of this feast.